Hi, pastors. It is Friday evening, and I wanted to get another message out before the weekend got underway. I'm back with my phone duct taped to the TV. It's working out okay so far. I highly recommend duct tape for a lot of fixes through coronavirus. Not toilet paper, though. Do not try that. But for holding your phone up, it works okay. It's been interesting trying to figure out with many of you how to interpret how effective we are in this new online social distancing world. In the midst of trying to figure out some of those logistics of how to communicate, what do you communicate, how do you meet needs, how do you know what the needs are, how do you count your services, what do you count? Like some of you are wondering, hey, we had 1,000 views on Sunday. Can we count 1,000? Because we normally average about 54, and 1,000 for a few weeks might look really good in the district journal, providing we have a district conference to have a district journal for. We don't know that yet. We have not canceled it. We're not postpone it. We'll wait a few weeks to determine things like that. And I know some of you are already starting to plan for local church conference and have dates set for that. If you need to postpone that, we'll wait a little while longer before making that determination, but we'll give you permission from the district level on postponing your local church conference if we need to do that in the coming weeks. Stay tuned for more information to come out about that. I don't know what it means for counting. Do your best to track it. Do your best to figure out how long people are on. Engage them as much as possible. Have somebody that's there communicating with people as they come online to draw them into conversation without being too annoying about it. Part of the benefit of this online church is that people are checking you out that didn't check you out before. Julie told me a story about up in Fort Collins. She said she had been inviting her neighbor for some time to come to church. The neighbor was not interested at all. And then when Julie said, well, we aren't having church normal, but we're doing it online. Check us out online. And the neighbor finally watched. She took part in church, having never done that before. And then Julie was able to have a meaningful conversation with her after that experience. So look for those opportunities that maybe didn't exist in the same way before. So as we're thinking about how do you determine how effective you are? What do you count? How do you count? Let's just, the bigger picture, take a look at what those who spent most time with Christ and first received the Holy Spirit, what they thought about what counts for church. As I read through the early church book of Acts, I see about 4 main activities that they would take part in. First of all, they would teach the scriptures. They would open the scriptures. The apostles spent time teaching scriptures, specifically what Jesus did to fulfill scriptures. And then some of you are doing that really well, and some of you had a really steep learning curve because you never even tried that before, but you tried it this last week, and you're figuring it out. Keep getting better at that. Keep practicing. Some of you had to practice a long time just to figure out how to preach behind a pulpit. Now you can figure out how to preach behind a video camera. You'll get there. You'll get better at it. The second thing they did was they shared Lord's Supper together. They did this in part to celebrate, in part to remember, but they did it also to connect to the Spirit of Christ and to His body, the church. So communion is still a very important part of entering into this fellowship of the church and fellowship with the Spirit of Christ through this sacred act, the sacrament of communion. So find ways to continue to do that. And maybe do that more now than you did even in the normal rhythms of your church calendar. It's a challenge to do that, but you can still do this. You can still do it very effectively online. The Anchor Church had a very neat idea where they put together communion care packages. So in this care package, we're encouraging notes to all the families in their church. They had a roll of toilet paper, so evidently they've been stockpiling toilet paper at the Anchor Church. They knew something was coming, so they were prepared for it. So they had extra toilet paper, but then they included communion elements and then instructions for how to participate in communion. So they said get online at a certain time, call in for prayer or whatever. So get online and we'll celebrate communion together with instructions to do that. So they took these care packages and then they ding dong ditched those care packages and Lindsay said it was the most effective thing they've done so far. So you can do this, and it's very meaningful still, even through distance. The Spirit of Christ gets through all that. Third thing they did was they baptized, which will be a little bit tricky. Some of you try to do that online. I want to see it. That would be cool to watch, and some of you will find creative ways to do social distance baptizing. But beyond that, when it says they baptized, it means that they were extending invitations for people to respond to this offer that God was giving for salvation. And then when people responded, they were there with next steps. So be vigilant in extending these invitations. Keep extending the invitation for people to respond, because the Holy Spirit is working on people during these times, and they're ready, maybe ripe and ready to act on this offer if it's presented to them. And then fourth, and here's the radical step that maybe some of you need to really tackle this week. The fourth function, as I read it, of the earliest church, is that they cared for each other. And that seems very simple, but Luke said they did it to such an extent that there were no needy people among them. And when somebody had a need, somebody else would make sure they met that need, even if it meant big sacrifice for them personally. They were going to make sure every need was met. This is the genius of the church, and this is the thing that the local church can do that a government cannot do. Is develop those personal connections. Think of it this way. Tim Troxel and I were having a discussion about these four functions this week, and he had this observation. He said, when all of our churches went online and started doing church online, we moved into the neighborhood of Stephen Furtick, Andy Stanley, and Craig Groeschel. Those guys, and many more, those guys do church online really, really well. So I don't want to discourage you, because some of you are trying really, really hard for online church, and keep doing it, keep getting better, keep communicating. But I'll just tell you right now, when it comes to online church, none of us are any match for some of those guys. But here's something cool to think about. When it comes to meeting the needs of the people in your neighborhood, those guys are no match for you. Why? Because this is what the local church does. It's local, and it connects to people where they are in their neighborhoods. You can do that like nobody else can do. So maybe the win for last week was that you finally figured out how to get on Instagram and Snapface, and you did it. Good job. Get there. The win moving forward is not that you just take your regular thing and put it online, but that you will figure out how to meet the needs of those around you. Now, there are low-tech ways to do that, and then there are high-tech ways to do it. Some churches, some of the biggest churches in the Wesleyan Church, are just making sure they get every family in their church called, and they're calling one by one, and they've recruited dozens of volunteers to do this if they have to, but they're just making that phone call, getting connected. Some high-tech ways to do it, like World Hope just released an online platform called get-support.us, where they help your local church connect and match people that need help with people who can provide help, and they have an interface to do that. You can check that out. It doesn't really matter how you do it, but it just does matter that you do figure it out. So see the opportunities around you to do the church, to do what the church has always done, to rise to meet the needs of the world that God so loves. So finally, one last thing. A lot of us are trying to figure out what the $2 trillion and growing stimulus package means for the local church, maybe for daycares, maybe for some of the nonprofits that some of you run. I'm not real sure, but a lot of smart people are digging into this as we speak. I think it does mean a lot for the local church. So stay informed, dig into what it's going to look like, because I think you're going to be able to take advantage of some of the aid that came out for your local church. We'll keep looking into what that looks like. Here are two resources I want to recommend to you. On Monday, March 30th, Kevin Batman, who's the CFO of the Wesleyan Church, plans to release a communication directly to our churches with a lot of helpful information of how you can take advantage of some of that. So pay attention to that email. I also recommend a webinar by Joe Sengel. Joe Sengel is the director of Enjoy Stewardship, and he's a consultant that I've used personally in Gillette a few times. They're still using up there, and a lot of Wesleyan churches use Joe Sengel. But he has a webinar scheduled for Monday, the 30th, and I'll try to figure out how to put the website up on the video for you to register for that webinar. I think that'll be very helpful. And I'll try to pass on anything else that I learn about this. I'm still praying for you, and I still love you, and I'm in there fighting with you.